Welcome back to another episode of the His and Her Money Show, brought to you by hisandhermoney.com. We're so happy that you guys joined us for another great show, and we know that you guys are going to love this show, and it's truly going to be motivational for you.
That's right. It's all about wealth building, the 10 commandments to wealth building. So I'm excited to kind of get in and find out what these 10 commandments are and start applying them, if we're not already applying them right now.
Yeah, we're going to be talking with Todd Tresidder from financialmentor.com, and Todd is a millionaire, of course. Matter of fact, he became a millionaire by the age of 35. And he learned a lot of valuable lessons along the way that he has taken some time out to share with us and with you so that you could actually follow in his footsteps and begin to build wealth right now. So let's not delay this any further. Why don't we get Todd on the line so he can share his vast range of knowledge. Hey, Todd, welcome to the show.
Todd?
Thanks for having me on the show.
We're excited. We are excited to have you on. You are known for helping people to learn how to build wealth, and we want to acquire that knowledge, and we want our audience to acquire it as well. But before we get into your expertise and your advice, can you take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience and let them know what you're all about?
Well, in terms of personal life and stuff, I'm father of 2 kids, husband, all the normal stuff. In terms of fun, I'm an outdoor recreation guy. That's what gives me pleasure. That and reading books. So, avid skier, backpacking, hiking, running, swimming. So that's what keeps me young. And then in terms of work, my background is I came from the hedge fund business, which is kind of the rocket science of investing. So I was one of the early pioneers developing statistical and mathematical algorithms for trading the markets. I was just nutty enough, and you got to understand this dates back to before computers were prevalent. So when I started creating this stuff, they were just coming out with the first IBM PC, and Apple II was just coming out of the garage, if you will. And so there weren't databases or anything, and I had this crazy idea that you could make money from the markets without knowing anything about them. You just had to understand the statistics behind it, and lo and behold, it worked. And now there's MIT PhDs researching this stuff, but back then it was fairly simple.
Awesome. Now I have to ask, what book are you currently reading?
Actually, the book that I'm currently reading is the kind of latest biography on Steve Jobs on Apple. The first one, the authorized biography, I can't remember the author, but it was the one that came out short after his death. It left me kind of dry, because it made him out to be a real jerk, and it just didn't tell the story that made sense to me. I've worked with enough people and enough successful people that I can kind of intuit when somebody's not getting it right. And so this other book came out and claimed to have the story right, claimed to rectify the problems from the first biography. And they tell the story of his genesis in terms of his management talent. And I'm really enjoying it because it totally makes sense and it totally sits with me how he pulled off what he did, given who he started out as. And it's a story of growth, personal growth, which is what I teach in wealth building. It's a path of personal growth.
Awesome. Now, you've been teaching people how to become wealthy for a number of years now. What's the biggest thing that you have noticed that is holding people back from becoming wealthy?
Taking action. I mean, it's pretty simple. The principle, you can summarize everything you need to know about wealth building in one sentence, right? It's spend less than you earn and so you have savings and invest those savings wisely. So in one sentence, you just learned everything you need to know about wealth building. So it's not knowing what to do. It's getting it done and getting it done right. People just we're not computers. And we don't just take action even though we know what we should do. And so the human element is probably the biggest obstacle to attaining your financial goals. The funny thing on it, it took me a long time to figure that out. Like when I first started teaching, investment strategy and financial strategy and stuff, because I came from the financial side of the business and knew all that, I thought that's what it was all about. I made the mistake that, every guru does, that they think it's all about the how-tos. And if you just show people how you did it, that they'll do the same. And it took me years to figure out the personal side. That was the huge learning curve for me. So I could consistently help people, was getting that personal side right.
Right. You believe that there are 10 commandments to wealth building. So can you tell us about the first commandment?
Yeah. I wrote an article that you're referencing here called The 10 Commandments of Wealth Building. It was a very popular article. And so it goes through them one by one because, a lot of people have this kind of, dirty belief about money and getting rich and, it's all this evil stuff. And that's not my experience in working with people or the experience from my own life. And so to hit that first so I wanted to write an article that told it the way I understood it. And so I wrote it down as 10 Commandments just for fun, right? Because you got to make a literary angle on it. And so the first article, or the first commandment, was that you have to get deeply motivated. And the reason for that is that earning financial wealth is an external goal. And, your motivations come internally, right? And so if you don't connect what you really want to achieve, your internal goal, to that external thing, it's going to be really hard to overcome all the obstacles that stand between you and wealth. Because it's a long journey, and there's a lot of obstacles, there's a lot of setbacks you're going to go through, and you have to persist and stay the course long enough to succeed. And so the idea of getting deeply motivated is this idea of connecting your goal of financial freedom to something deeper than just, having more, better, different stuff. You've got to connect to something inside of you. For me, it was about personal freedom.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's huge, because if you don't have that proper motivation, it'll be so easy for you to fall off, because it takes a lot of consistent discipline over time. And if you don't have the proper motivation behind you, propelling you forward, it'd be much easier to get off course. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's got to be deep. Like for me, the story I tell is I was sitting on a cliff in Santa Monica when I went to UCLA. They have Santa Monica Park. It's right on the cliffs overlooking the ocean. And I remember thinking the bums in the park were freer than my buddies who were graduating from college and heading off to Cubicle Nation. And it was just kind of this deep commitment I had that, as long as I was going to lead an economic life, I may as well design it for freedom. And that's the only thing that's ever made sense to me all along. I've never understood why anybody would design their life to achieve anything other than financial freedom. And so even though I got knocked back all the time, I had all kinds of setbacks. I did not follow this path perfectly. So even though I had all these setbacks, it always came back to that commitment. I'd look back and I'd go, does anything else make sense? And no, it didn't. And I'd get right back on the path again. And ultimately I prevailed.
Now, moving on to your second wealth building principle, you say that we should give more value than we take. Now, what exactly does that mean?
Well, a lot of people come at the getting riches game as if it's all about exploitation. And that does happen, right? There's people who exploit others and exploit resources and exploit business things and take advantage of stuff and accumulate wealth. But I take a different approach to it. I think that building wealth done right is about giving more value than you take. And so by that, you give people a good deal and you create value. That's how a business is done right. Going back to the Steve Jobs story as an example, they created amazing products that revolutionized how people function in their daily lives. They built huge value and they overcame huge obstacles to do it. Yeah, they charge a pretty penny for it too, so I don't know if they give more value than they take. But anyway, it's an example of creating value, and that's how you want to approach wealth building. And the beauty of that is when you take that approach and you design your business, you design your wealth plans accordingly, then what happens is as you accumulate wealth, your wealth becomes a measure of how much value you've given. And so it's just a really fulfilling, satisfying approach to take.
Can you walk us through the next commandment, which is live with 100% integrity?
Well, yeah, it kind of plays off the last one. You want to approach this with integrity. You never want to do anything that you couldn't tell your parents, couldn't tell your children. So many people, they'll choose expediency over integrity in pursuing wealth. They'll take expedient solutions, shortcuts, things like that. If it doesn't feel right, just don't do it. And I know that's easier said than done, but really it's just a black and white dividing line. You don't want to ever sacrifice your integrity because there's no value you can put on a good night's sleep. So you just keep it on track. The goal here is a wealthy life. It's not just financial wealth. And so these principles are good for business and they're good for living.
Yeah, and I think that when you have that integrity, even before you get the wealth, it helps. Because what money does, it just magnifies who you already are. So if you lack integrity prior to becoming wealthy, once you become wealthy, you're just going to have even less.
Well, and there's another funny story on the whole backside of this, is that once you're wealthy and your life is structured nicely and you're leading a good life, then a lot of people are jealous and will take pot shots at you, or they'll say, oh, must be nice. You had it easy. You got lucky, whatever. It's really important that you build it right so you can stand tall and know that, you did good. You helped people. You contributed. You always acted with integrity. And so you can live a wealthy life on the back end of it. Again, this isn't just about making money. It's not about amassing capital. This is about leading a wealthy life. This is about fulfillment.
Yeah, and to the last point you just made, being able to stand tall, I know that your next wealth building commandment is to be courageous, correct?
Yeah. So where that one comes from is that this game's hard. It's not a simple game, and I don't want to mince words on it. And so it takes, by definition, if you're going to build wealth, if you're going to succeed, you're going to stand out from the pack. And we're all pack animals, and we like being in the pack. We like following the pack. And so extreme success or extreme failure have the same response for the human, which is it's very uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because it separates you from the pack. You're away from the herd. And so, that's kind of where it comes from, is it takes courage to be a self-starter. It takes courage to be self-responsible. It takes courage to walk new paths. Okay, so anyway, wealth doesn't come from following the crowd. And so it takes courage to separate yourself and do something different and do something that's going to create value, do something that's going to move you forward in life. And once you do that and you separate yourself, it takes courage to follow the path.
Yeah, I think that's a more powerful statement than we realize there. That takes courage because you're going to be separating yourself from the pack, from the norm. And people are not always going to be celebrating and cheering you on, but there could be there definitely will be some jealousy and some side eyes, and you still need the courage even after you make it, because it actually could get worse for you.
Yeah, quite the opposite. They're not going to celebrate you at all. As a matter of fact, your friends of long will want you to come back to the pack. And so as you pursue different activities, it's uncomfortable for them because as you do different things, they have to look honestly in the mirror. And so you will get judged and you'll get ridiculed because it's easier to project onto you than for them to own their own stuff. And so it can be a tough journey. Again, we're not mincing words here. It can be a tough journey, but it's also really rewarding. It's really rewarding to step up to that next level, become the best version of yourself that you can be.
Yeah. And commandment number 5 is be disciplined. What do you mean by that?
Well, there's kind of this myth out there that, you got instant riches or the sudden instant success stories that you hear. And yet the truth of the matter is that the apparent sudden success is usually built brick by brick over 10 years. And it's just that last round of success that really appears and looks sudden. But if you look back, the foundation was laid over many years of disciplined effort. And so one of my sayings that I like to throw around is that your health, wealth, and happiness are a function of your habits. And so you really want to look at your habits and see how you're approaching this. And that's where the discipline comes in, is that it's that daily habitual compounding of wealth, the daily habits that grow you as a person, that increase your personal capital in terms of what your earning capacity and your investment skills and all these things that you do instead of watching nighttime TV. It's this constant compounding that over time accumulates into something significant. But it doesn't happen overnight, and that's why it requires discipline, because if you don't get those immediate rewards, we like immediate gratification. And if you don't get those immediate rewards, it takes discipline to stay the course, particularly when you take setbacks. If you're doing all the right things and yet you take a setback for whatever reason, it's hard to get back up and it's hard to keep going. It takes discipline.
Now, I've heard, the likes of Warren Buffett and even you spoke of, a habit of always reading and growing in that area. Are there some other habits that you're referring to that we should be incorporating on a regular basis?
Yeah, well, one of them is reading. I'm a bookworm. I guess you know that about me. So, yeah, I've got shelves and shelves of books here, walls of books, and I've sold a whole room of books on eBay when I was developing all my investment skills. I had books going back in the 1800s. So, yeah, I'm a bit of a bookworm. Love reading, love learning. So that's a major habit. Savings, regular savings out of your income. That's an important habit. Constantly increasing your worth in terms of your ability to earn money and your worth to whatever your employer is or your business. So improving your skills. These are all just habits that compound over time, just like money. That's the thing. Like you've seen those what are called mountain charts in the business, where if you add X thousands per month and you watch the chart and it'll rise from the bottom left to the top right, right?
Yep.
Because it compounds over time. Well, all your habits have the same effect. They all compound over time. Same thing with health, right? If you eat poorly over time, your system breaks down. Right. Exercise, that's another habit. They all lead to a wealthy life.
Wow. Awesome.
No big secrets here. That's the thing. None of this is a secret. Right. It's all well-known stuff. It's just doing it. It's the question of living it with regularity, with discipline.
Awesome.
The other thing I want to throw in is this gets away from this magical thinking idea. Notice how I'm talking about building it brick by brick. Mm-hmm. So many people that don't build wealth, one of the things they succumb to is what I call magical thinking, where they think that, someday the wealth fairy is going to come along and spread pixie dust on them and they're going to magically become wealthy. And it doesn't happen that way. You don't suddenly have opportunity cross your path. You create opportunity, you create your luck, and it's through consistent, disciplined effort.
Mm. I like that a lot. Now, avoiding conspicuous consumption is the 6th principle, but what does that look like for people listening right now in their everyday lives?
Well, conspicuous consumption is how a lot of people think of wealth, right? They think of the guy driving the Mercedes and living in the fancy home and wearing the designer suits and looking all sharp and dapper. And, wealth is different. That was made famous in the book, The Millionaire Next Door. I always thought I was a freak. The way I lived, because I didn't spend money lavishly. I mean, I need a good book and a chair to sit in and a comfortable bed and healthy food. I love my outdoor recreation. Once you have the toys, it doesn't cost much to do that. And so, I always thought I was kind of the freak. And then I read Millionaire Next Door and I went, oh my gosh, I'm normal. At least in the cohort of millionaires, I was normal. I mean, I drove a truck and I ate healthy food and I preferred a good beer to a good beer and a burger to caviar and champagne. It's just, that turns out to be quite normal. And so the thing about wealth is that it's a form of delayed gratification. You don't get rich by spending your way there. It just doesn't work that way. And so if you get really attached to the material trappings of life, you're going to end up spending everything you make and all your excess income, and you're never going to accumulate it to form wealth. And so what you want to get really attached to is the freedom, not the consumption habits. You want to get attached to watching that bank balance grow because you know what that equates to in terms of the lifestyle it buys you. Don't get attached to the lifestyle today and trying to spend your way, because it's a treadmill and you'll never get off it.
Like that. Now, how do we build supportive environments, which is your 7th commandment?
So, as I've said before, building wealth is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And that's achieving financial freedom, same thing as building wealth. They're just all saying the same thing. And so it takes a while. And so what's going to happen is you're going to get knocked back. And so you have to, one of the characteristics of people that succeed is their recovery time is much shorter. And they recover better and they make smarter decisions. And so you want to build supportive environments that literally pull you towards your wealth goals. So things like coaching, things like a mastermind group. You could have an accountability partner. Make sure your spouse is supportive. I mean, look at the difference with the two of you on the show and both of you having a pursuit of money. What difference that makes for you guys as a couple. Imagine if one of you was a spending junkie, had no value on freedom goals. It would totally impact your life as a couple. So it's important to have a supportive spouse, supportive family, supportive friends. All these things pull you towards the goal. So when you get knocked down, people are like, well, what are you doing groveling in your misery? Get back up, get going. Or like for me, I have mastermind groups. And so every Monday I'm on the phone with people who are very successful and I've got goals to be accountable toward. And I work toward them. And when I don't work toward them, they call me out on it.
Nice. I think accountability is huge. No matter what your current status is, you're currently a millionaire or you're currently aspiring to be one. Man, somebody's got to hold you accountable because you can't hold yourself accountable because if you could, you'd be there already, right?
Yeah. It's just, it's asking for superhuman discipline to do it all on your own.
Right.
And like the joke I like to throw around, it's asking for the discipline of a celibate monk living in a brothel. Right. It's just not going to happen.
It's not going to work.
Yeah, it's not going to work,
So now, moving on to your 8th commandment, you say that we need to apply leverage to build wealth. Now, for the average Joe out there, when they hear that, what should they take from that?
Well, there's no difference from what the average Joe should take from anyone else. As far as I'm concerned, we're all average Joes. We're just at different paths on the journey. So the answer is leverage is how you do more with less. You're not going to build wealth by trading time for money. It's just not going to happen. Because what happens is your hours is always connected to how much you make, and there's limits, and your lifestyle rises to justify the hard work you're putting in, and it's just a trap. And so you have to apply leverage in one way or another. And so what leverage does is it allows you to get more done with less of your own resources. And so there's different kinds of leverage. Like the one that most people are familiar with is financial leverage. And the unique thing about financial leverage is that it's the one leverage that cuts both ways, right? So financial leverage makes the good times really good and the bad times absolutely unbearable, right? Because it multiplies your losses as well as your gains. And so financial leverage is one form of leverage, and it's the one most people are familiar with. But there's other forms of leverage. So, for instance, it's not well understood that building your own business is the most common way to build wealth. One of the reasons for that is it has two advantages. One is tax advantages, which we're not going to get into here because it doesn't apply to leverage. But the other is the time leverage involved through employees. You can get more done with less of your time through the work of employees and assistants. And so that's an example of time leverage. Again, we only have 24 hours in a day. There's only so much one person can accomplish. But a large company with many employees working toward a common goal can accomplish a lot more. There's systems and technology leverage. There's marketing leverage, network leverage, knowledge leverage. Like you can even look at this podcast right now with the three of us on here. You guys are leveraging my knowledge to have good content, right? I'm leveraging your audience to create greater access to more people. We're both leveraging technology so we can affordably reach many, many people at an affordable price. So these are all examples of leverage in real time just from this podcast.
Yeah, love that. Now, you also teach that we should treat our wealth like a business. How do we do that?
You want to think of yourselves as you Inc. Okay? So, in other words, what a lot of people do is they get confused and they think of their business as their wealth plan. Or they think of their savings as their wealth plan. You want to think of a corporate org chart where you put your wealth right at the top and everything governs toward it. So then like your business becomes a vice president. It's on the second row. Everything feeds up to your wealth plan and you design your life around it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to have a plan and you want to run your wealth professionally. So, with a plan, just like you would have a business plan. You want to be accountable just like you'd be accountable in a business. You want to run it professionally. Most people put more time and effort into planning their vacation than they do their wealth.
Wow. That's a powerful statement and painfully true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So run it like you would run a business because it is a business. It's you Inc.
Awesome. Now, your last principle, number 10. It's almost like Dave Letterman at the top 10.
All right.
Now, lastly, number 10.
Yeah, but I think we're lacking comedy here. We needed more comedy for that one.
But this has been awesome, seriously. And so number 10, your 10th commandment is this: steward your wealth.
Yeah, so that's again, I'm trying to create a concept here, which is that, money is just passing through you. And you're just passing through this life. Like we get this grandiose vision like we're permanent and we're building this wealth and we're creating this legacy. And you are kind of, but recognize that, the money in your hands was in somebody else's hands, 100 years ago. And,
right.
And the stuff is just passing through and you will pass too. And so you want to be responsible. You want to use it for good. You want to use it for good for your family, for your friends. You want to use it to create good in the world. And that comes back to that thing of creating more value and acting with integrity. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so it's about stewardship. It's about recognizing this is temporary. You're just stewarding that money as it's in your temporary possession. Ultimately, you will pass and it will pass on to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell our audience more about your site, financialmentor.com, and all the resources that they can find there?
Yeah. So as you said, my site is financialmentor.com. It's all one word, financialmentor.com. And I give away a ton of stuff on the site. So there's more than 1,000 pages of content if you went and printed all the stuff. I've got one of the largest resource collections of financial calculators on the internet. And it's because I'm trying to make the math of doing wealth easy. Ultimately, wealth building is governed by mathematics. And a lot of people have a problem with math, and so I just created all these calculators to make pretty much governs almost any decision you want to make. There's one for it. And so those are up there free to use, no opt-in or anything required. And then also for people that want to subscribe, I give away a free ebook teaching a lot of lessons along my journey. It's called 18 Essential Lessons from a Self-Made Millionaire. And then I also give away a free course. It's called 52 Weeks to Financial Freedom. And no, it's not about get rich quick. I don't do that stuff. But what it does do is it outlines the big principles, the big ideas, the steps you will go through in your wealth building journey so that you have a map. You understand where you're going, where you are in the process.
Now, you are the financial mentor, so do you offer coaching?
I do, but I've been sold out. I haven't accepted a new client in like a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a good problem to have.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, the business just went nuts. I could fill 10, if there was 10 Todds, I could fill 10 Todds practices, probably even more. I mean, my client retention is really high. I've got clients that have been with me 5 years, one client over 10 years, and the whole business just blew up. So I had to shut down. So I haven't accepted a new client in about a year and a half. What I am doing is I'm transitioning the business over to a product-based model. I have a product line called 7 Steps to 7 Figures. I'm hoping to offer the first group coaching course starting around the turn of this year. And all that will get announced in the newsletter when people subscribe. But that's how I'm trying to help more people at a better price point, because coaching's expensive. So if I can get into a group coaching format and get the courses set up, I can help more people with the same material, just at a better price point.
Todd Tresidder from financialmentor.com. You know what? We appreciate you finding some time in your busy schedule to come and share with our audience today. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was so powerful, man. I mean, we were taking notes ourselves. And you know what? It's like he said, it's not rocket science, not magic. But what it comes down to is taking action. That's what separates the wealthy from the not wealthy, because the principles are sound. The principles are there. The principles don't change. It comes down to what are we going to do about it?
But how many times do we have to hear that? You know what I mean? In order to finally just start doing it, and start taking action. Like you said, it's not rocket scientists. We just need to just start. I loved also how he mentioned integrity. You know how big we are about integrity. Yeah. Like, it's no fun if you're going to try to, start a business or whatever it is to build wealth and you do it the wrong way. Like, we want to be able to sleep at night. So having a clear conscience and doing it with nothing but integrity is the right way to do it.
Yeah, and we highly encourage you guys to go check out the article over at the Financial Mentor. If you look in the show notes of this episode, you'll find a direct link there, because this is something that you need to hold fast to, something that you're going to want to reflect back on time and time again, because you know what? We can do this. We have the ability to become wealthy. It's going to take some consistency. It's going to take some discipline, but we have what it takes. Right. So this has been a great resource for us, and we hope that it's been a great resource for you.
That's right.
Well, that does it for this episode of the His and Her Money Show.
Don't forget, visit us over at our website at hisandhermoney.com.
And don't forget to check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/hisandhermoney. Here it is. No matter where you are on the road to financial freedom, the key is to start now
and finish strong.
Thanks for tuning in to the His and Her Money Show. For more information on how to win with your finances, be sure to visit www.hisandhermoney.com.